In 1513, Niccolò Machiavelli sat in exile, stripped of power, stripped of position, watching Florence from the outside. And in that silence, in that humiliation, he wrote something that would terrify rulers for centuries. Not the prince, something else. A manual for the individual, for the man who refuses to break. 1,500 years before Machiavelli, another man sat in similar exile. Seneca, philosopher, advisor to emperors, banished, betrayed, condemned, and he too wrote something. Letters, private instructions, on how to remain unshakable when everything collapses around you. These two men never met, lived in different eras, different worlds, but they discovered the same thing, the same laws, the laws that forge what they called the Iron Man. Not made of metal, made of will. Tonight we reveal all 25, the complete code for becoming unstoppable. This is the Hidden Codex. Niccolò Machiavelli, 1469 to 1527, Florentine diplomat, political theorist, master strategist. Most know him for The Prince, the book on power, on manipulation, on ruthless pragmatism. But Machiavelli wrote more than that. He wrote about virtue, not the kind priests preach, the kind that makes a man invincible. He called it virtù, the quality of being unbreakable, adaptable, relentless. Seneca, 4 BC to 65 AD, Roman Stoic, playwright, advisor to Nero, exiled twice, forced to take his own life by the very emperor he once guided. And yet, even facing death, even bleeding out in a bathtub, Seneca remained calm, composed, unshaken, because he had built something inside himself, something they couldn't kill. Tonight we merge their wisdom, 25 laws, taken from their letters, their essays, their private writings, laws that most people will never follow, because most people want comfort, they want safety, they want to avoid pain. But you're still here, so maybe you're different. Before we continue, if you're tired of weak philosophy, if you want the real teachings that actually build strength, subscribe to the Hidden Codex, turn on notifications, because what comes next is not for the faint of heart. Now let's begin. Law number 1, accept that fortune is a river. Machiavelli wrote this in The Prince, but most people misunderstand it. He said fortune is like a violent river. When it floods, it destroys everything, towns, fields, lives. But here's what people miss. He said, when times are calm, you build the dams, you prepare the channels, you redirect the flow before it becomes a flood. Most men wait, they react, they scramble when disaster strikes. The Iron Man prepares in advance. He knows chaos is coming, so he builds his defenses now, financially, mentally, physically, spiritually. Seneca said something similar. He called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Every morning he would visualize everything that could go wrong, loss, betrayal, death, pain, not to be pessimistic, to be ready, so that when disaster came, it found him already prepared, already calm, already unshakable. Most people avoid thinking about pain. They distract themselves, numb themselves, pretend everything will be fine. And then when pain comes, as it always does, they shatter. The Iron Man expects the worst, plans for it, and therefore, nothing surprises him. Law number 2, never depend on the goodwill of others. Machiavelli was blunt about this. He wrote, a prince should never rely on what he does not control. What you don't control will eventually destroy you. Goodwill is not control. Loyalty is not control. Promises are not control. Only power is control. Now Machiavelli isn't saying to trust no one. He's saying, never let your survival depend on someone else's mood, someone else's loyalty, someone else's memory of your kindness. Because people forget, people change, people betray, not because they're evil, because they're human. And humans act in their own interest. Seneca agreed, but from a different angle. He said, the wise man is self-sufficient. He doesn't need external validation, doesn't need praise, doesn't need approval, because his sense of worth comes from within, from his own character, his own actions, his own principles. So here's the law in practice. Build your life so that if everyone abandoned you tomorrow, you'd still survive, you'd still thrive. Financially independent, emotionally resilient, mentally strong. That doesn't mean isolation, it means foundation. The Iron Man can walk alone, and therefore when he walks with others, it's by choice, not necessity, and that makes all the difference. Law number 3, adapt or die. Machiavelli watched men cling to old strategies, old beliefs, old ways of doing things, and he watched them destroyed by the changing times. He wrote, "The man who adapts to the nature of the times will succeed. The man who does not will be ruined." Not eventually ruined, inevitably ruined. Because the world doesn't care about your principles if those principles make you weak. The world doesn't reward stubbornness. It rewards adaptation. Seneca said, "The wise man changes with circumstances, but his principles remain firm." This is the balance. You don't abandon your core, your values, your character, but you adapt your methods, your tactics, your approach. The Iron Man is like water. He flows around obstacles, takes the shape of the container, seeps through cracks, but he never loses his essence. Most men are like stone, rigid, unmovable, proud of their consistency, until the river erodes them, until they crack, until they crumble into dust. Ask yourself, are you adapting? Or are you clinging to strategies that no longer work because admitting they failed would hurt your ego? The Iron Man has no ego about methods, only about results. Law number 4, control your desires or they will control you. This is where Seneca shines. He said slavery resides under marble and gold. What he meant was, the richest men are often the most enslaved because they are slaves to their desires, to their comforts, to their luxuries. They can't go without, they can't sacrifice, they can't endure discomfort, and so they are fragile. Machiavelli noticed this in rulers. He wrote, "A prince who becomes effeminate through excessive ease will lose his state. Not through war, not through betrayal, through softness." Because once you need comfort, you can be controlled by anyone who can take that comfort away. The Iron Man practices voluntary discomfort. He fasts when he could feast, trains when he could rest, endures cold when he could be warm, not because he hates pleasure, but because he refuses to need it. Seneca fasted regularly, slept on hard floors, wore cheap clothes, not out of poverty, out of strength. He wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days to be content with the meanest food and dress. Then ask yourself, is this the condition I feared?" And the answer is always no, because the fear is worse than the reality. Once you prove to yourself that you can survive without luxury, without comfort, without ease, you become free. Free from fear, free from manipulation, free from control. And that is power. Law number 5, embrace conflict, don't avoid it. Machiavelli wrote, "War cannot be avoided, only postponed to the advantage of your enemy." Most people hate conflict. They avoid confrontation, dodge difficult conversations, postpone hard decisions. And in doing so, they make everything worse. Because problems don't disappear when ignored. They grow, they fester, they become catastrophic. The Iron Man faces conflict immediately, head on, without hesitation, not because he enjoys it, but because he understands. Small battles now prevent massive wars later. Seneca agreed. He said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." The anticipation of conflict is worse than the conflict itself. So the Iron Man doesn't wait, doesn't delay, doesn't hope the problem will resolve itself. He confronts, he addresses, he handles. And here's what happens. Most conflicts, when faced directly, dissolve. Because most people are just as afraid as you are. And when you step forward with calm resolve, they step back. But even if they don't, even if the conflict escalates, you're already engaged, already fighting, already moving. And movement beats paralysis every single time. Law number 6, fortune favors the bold, but only the prepared bold. Machiavelli worshipped action. He despised hesitation. He wrote, "It is better to be impetuous than cautious, because fortune is a woman and it is necessary to hold her down and beat her." Controversial words. But his point was, fortune favors aggression, favors movement, favors those who seize opportunity without overthinking. But here's the caveat. Seneca added the other half. He said, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." You can't just be bold, you have to be ready. The Iron Man prepares obsessively, studies, trains, plans, builds reserves of knowledge, skill, resources. Then, when opportunity appears, when the moment demands action, he strikes, without hesitation, without second guessing. But his boldness isn't reckless, it's calculated. Most people are either too cautious or too reckless. They overthink until the opportunity passes, or they leap without looking and destroy themselves. The Iron Man balances both. He prepares in silence, then acts in thunder. And fortune, as Machiavelli promised, yields to him. Law number 7, suffer in silence. Seneca wrote, "The brave man is not the one who feels no fear, but the one whose fears do not control him." And part of that control is silence. When you broadcast your pain, your struggles, your fears, you invite interference, pity, manipulation, exploitation. Machiavelli observed this in politics. He said, "Never let your enemies know you're wounded, because the moment they sense weakness, they attack." Not just enemies, everyone, even friends, because weakness invites contempt, not always consciously, but instinctively. The Iron Man suffers alone. He endures in private. He bleeds behind closed doors. Then he emerges stronger, healed, unbroken. And people wonder, how did he do it? How did he survive? They don't know, because he never told them. This isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about choosing your audience. Seneca shared his struggles with close friends, in letters, in private conversations, but never publicly, never broadly. Because the world doesn't reward vulnerability, it exploits it. So suffer in silence, heal in private, emerge victorious. Law number 8, build a reputation as if it were armor. Machiavelli understood reputation better than almost anyone. He wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." Reputation is not vanity, it's strategy. A strong reputation protects you, opens doors, creates opportunities, instills fear in enemies, trust in allies. A weak reputation invites attack, suspicion, betrayal. Seneca said something similar. He wrote, "Regard your reputation as part of your character, because it shapes how the world treats you." Now here's the key. You can't fake this. A reputation built on lies collapses the moment it's tested. The Iron Man builds his reputation through action, through consistency, through delivering on promises, through demonstrating competence, strength, reliability. Then once built, he defends it ferociously. Because a reputation takes years to build and seconds to destroy. One moment of weakness, one public failure, one broken promise, and the armor cracks. So the Iron Man is vigilant. He guards his reputation like a treasure, because in many ways, it is. Law number 9, control the narrative or someone else will. Machiavelli wrote, "Men judge generally by the eye rather than by the hand, because everyone can see but few can perceive." Translation, people believe what they see, not what is true. If you don't control how people see you, how they interpret your actions, how they frame your story, someone else will, and they won't frame it in your favor. Seneca understood this too. He said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." He was controlling the narrative around wealth, reframing poverty as freedom, reframing desire as slavery. And it worked. Seneca's philosophy survived millennia because he controlled the story. The Iron Man is deliberate about his narrative. He doesn't lie, but he emphasizes what matters, downplays what doesn't, frames his actions in context. He doesn't leave interpretation to chance. Because people will interpret, that's inevitable. The question is, will they interpret according to your framing or theirs? Take control, shape the story, not through manipulation, through clarity. Law number 10, solitude is strength, not weakness. Seneca wrote extensively about this. He said, "Flee the crowd, associate with those who improve you, welcome those whom you can improve." He didn't mean become a hermit, he meant be selective. Most people fear solitude. They fill every moment with noise, distraction, company, because in silence they face themselves, and they don't like what they find. The Iron Man seeks solitude. He uses it to think, reflect, plan, recharge. Machiavelli, in exile, spent years alone, and in that solitude he wrote his greatest works. Seneca, even in Rome's chaos, retreated regularly into private thought. Because solitude clarifies, it removes the opinions of others, the pressures of society, the distractions of the world. In solitude, you hear your own voice, your true desires, your real principles. And that clarity makes you dangerous. Because once you know yourself, truly know yourself, you can't be swayed, can't be manipulated, can't be broken. So embrace it, seek it, use it. Law number 11, never reveal your full strength. Machiavelli was a master of this. He wrote, "It is better to be feared for what might be done than for what has been done." Mystery creates power. Uncertainty creates fear. If your enemies know your full capabilities, they can prepare, counter, neutralize. But if they don't know, if they suspect you're holding something back, they hesitate. They overestimate. They make mistakes. Seneca applied this differently. He said, "The wise man never displays all his knowledge. Because the moment you reveal everything, people stop valuing you." The Iron Man always keeps something in reserve, a hidden skill, a secret resource, a final card. Not out of deception, out of strategy. He fights with half his strength and wins, so when the real battle comes, he has reserves left. He shares half his wisdom and impresses, so when the critical moment comes, he has more to give. This creates an aura. People sense there's more beneath the surface, and that keeps them respectful, cautious, intrigued. So never empty the vault, always hold something back. Law number 12. Choose your battles with ruthless precision. Machiavelli observed, "A prince should never engage in war unless absolutely necessary or overwhelmingly advantageous." Every battle costs something: energy, resources, reputation, time. The Iron Man doesn't fight every fight. He lets small insults pass, ignores minor provocations, walks away from pointless conflicts. Not because he's weak, because he's calculating. Seneca agreed. He wrote, "It is not the man who has too much who is greedy, but the man who wants more." Apply this to conflict. It's not the man who loses small battles who is weak. It's the man who needs to win every single one who is insecure. The Iron Man fights only when victory matters, when the stakes justify the cost, when winning changes something meaningful. Everything else, noise, and he has no time for noise. So ask yourself, which battles actually matter? Which are just ego? Which are just noise? Then fight the first, ignore the rest. Law number 13. Pain is the forge, not the enemy. Seneca said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." Most people avoid pain. They seek comfort, ease, safety. And in doing so, they become soft, fragile, breakable. The Iron Man seeks difficulty, not because he enjoys suffering, but because he understands. Pain is the price of strength. Every weight lifted is pain. Every mile run is pain. Every difficult decision is pain. And every single one makes you harder, sharper, stronger. Machiavelli noticed this in soldiers. He wrote, "The best troops are those who have suffered, who have endured hardship, who have been tested. Untested troops break in the first real battle. Tested troops hold the line." So the Iron Man doesn't run from pain. He runs toward it, deliberately, voluntarily. He trains harder than necessary, endures more than required, pushes further than expected. Not for glory, for forging. Because he knows, the more pain he endures now by choice, the less pain will break him later, when it's not a choice. Seneca practiced this literally: cold baths, fasting, physical discomfort. He wrote, "I am preparing myself, not for what I hope will happen, but for what might happen." And when disaster came, when Nero ordered his death, Seneca was ready. Calm, composed, unafraid, because he had already endured worse, by choice. Law number 14. Let your actions speak, not your words. Machiavelli despised talkers. He wrote, "Men are so simple and so ready to obey present necessities that one who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived." Words are cheap, promises are worthless, claims mean nothing. Action is truth. The Iron Man doesn't announce his plans, doesn't brag about his goals, doesn't promise what he'll do. He just does it, then lets the results speak. Seneca said, "When a thing is done, it's done. Stop talking about it." Most people reverse this. They talk about what they'll do, build hype, seek validation, then do nothing. Or worse, they do something small and talk like it's monumental. The Iron Man does something monumental and mentions it casually, if at all. Because his confidence doesn't come from recognition. It comes from the work itself. So here's the law in practice. Stop talking about what you're going to do. Stop seeking approval for your plans. Stop explaining yourself. Just act, build, execute. Then when people notice, when they ask, you can speak. But let them ask first. Law number 15. Death is the advisor, not the enemy. Seneca was obsessed with death. He meditated on it daily. He wrote, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life." Not morbidly, strategically. Because remembering death clarifies life. It reveals what matters, what's trivial, what's worth fighting for. Machiavelli saw this in soldiers. The ones who had faced death fought differently, calmer, more decisive, less hesitant, because they knew hesitation kills faster than action. The Iron Man keeps death close, not as a fear, as a reminder. He asks, if I died tomorrow, would I be proud of today? And that question guides him. It makes him bold, because there's no time for cowardice. It makes him honest, because there's no time for pretense. It makes him focused, because there's no time for distraction. Most people avoid thinking about death. They distract themselves, pretend they're immortal, and so they waste years, decades, lives. The Iron Man remembers he is mortal. Time is finite. Every day lost is gone forever, and that makes him unstoppable. Because when you remember you will die, you stop caring about petty fears, social embarrassment, minor failures, temporary discomfort. You act now, always. Seneca wrote, "You live as if you were destined to live forever. Your own frailty never occurs to you." The Iron Man never forgets his frailty. And paradoxically, that makes him stronger. Law number 16, build alliances but never depend on them. Machiavelli was pragmatic about alliances. He wrote, "Alliances are useful, but they should never be necessary. Align with others when interests overlap. Cooperate when mutual benefit exists. But always maintain the ability to walk away. Because alliances shift, interests diverge, loyalty fades. The Iron Man builds relationships, networks, partnerships, but he never lets his survival depend on them." Seneca said, "The wise man is a friend to all but relies on none." This isn't cynicism, it's realism. People change, circumstances change. What seems solid today crumbles tomorrow. So the Iron Man remains self-sufficient, always. He can collaborate, but he can also operate alone. And that independence makes him a better ally, because he's not desperate, not needy, not clingy. He brings value from strength, not desperation. And that makes people want to work with him. Law number 17, observe more than you speak. Seneca wrote, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." The Iron Man is quiet, not because he has nothing to say, but because listening reveals more than speaking. People reveal themselves when they talk, their fears, their desires, their weaknesses, their plans. Machiavelli was a master observer. He watched, listened, recorded, and then he acted with precision, because he knew what others didn't, what they had revealed without realizing. Most people talk to feel important, to be heard, to validate themselves. The Iron Man listens to understand, to learn, to gain advantage, and in silence, he becomes invisible, underestimated, dismissed, which is exactly where he wants to be, because no one guards themselves against someone they don't notice. So speak less, observe more, let others reveal themselves. Then use what you've learned. Law number 18, master your rage or it will master you. Seneca was clear, anger is temporary madness. When you're angry, you're not in control, your enemy is. Because whoever can make you angry controls you in that moment. Machiavelli agreed. He wrote, "Never make decisions in anger, because anger clouds judgment, distorts priorities, creates mistakes." The Iron Man feels anger. He's not emotionless, but he doesn't act on it. He feels the rage, acknowledges it, then sets it aside. He waits until he's calm, until he can think clearly. Then he acts, not from emotion, from calculation. And here's what happens. His response is more effective, more precise, more devastating, because it's not driven by rage, it's driven by strategy. Seneca practiced this. When insulted, he would pause, breathe, reflect, then respond hours later, or days, or sometimes not at all. Because most insults aren't worth a response, and those that are deserve a calculated one. So the Iron Man never reacts. He responds, always on his terms, always on his timeline. And that makes him unpredictable, controlled, dangerous. Law number 19. Self-discipline is the foundation of all power. Machiavelli wrote about virtue, that quality that separates great men from weak ones. At its core, virtue is discipline. The ability to do what needs to be done, regardless of how you feel. Seneca said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Discipline is freedom, not restriction. Because when you control yourself, no one else can. The Iron Man wakes when he plans to wake, trains when he plans to train, works when he plans to work. Not when he feels like it, but when he decided to. His feelings are irrelevant. His discipline is absolute. And that consistency compounds. day after day, week after week, year after year, until he becomes something others can't comprehend. Not because he's gifted, but because he's disciplined. Most people are slaves to impulse, to mood, to convenience. The Iron Man is a slave to nothing, and that makes him unstoppable. Law number 20. Revenge is a dish best served calculated. Machiavelli understood revenge. He wrote, "If an injury is to be done, it should be done all at once, so that it tastes less bitter." Translation, if you must retaliate, do it decisively, completely, once. Not in petty strikes, not in drawn-out feuds. One calculated blow, then move on. Seneca warned against revenge entirely. He said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." But he also understood human nature. If revenge must happen, let it be rational, not emotional. The Iron Man doesn't seek revenge out of hurt pride, out of anger, out of ego. He calculates, is this strategically necessary? Does this serve a purpose beyond satisfaction? If yes, he acts, swiftly, completely, silently. If no, he moves on. Because holding grudges is exhausting, draining, distracting, and the Iron Man has better things to do than nurse old wounds. So he either strikes once, decisively, and closes the chapter, or he lets it go entirely. No middle ground, no festering, no endless cycles. Law number 1. Accept reality exactly as it is. This is the foundation. Everything else builds on this. Seneca wrote, "There is no evil in change, only in the resistance to change." Most people live in denial. They wish things were different. They complain about what is. They resist reality, and in doing so, they suffer. The Iron Man accepts, completely, without hesitation, not because he's passive, but because acceptance is the first step to action. You can't change what you won't acknowledge. Machiavelli said, "Men judge generally by the eye rather than by the hand." He meant, people see surface reality, the wise see deeper. The Iron Man sees reality as it truly is, not as he wishes it were, not as others claim it is. He sees the cold truth, then he acts accordingly. This is brutal, uncomfortable, sometimes devastating, but it's necessary. Because living in delusion makes you vulnerable, weak, controllable. Living in truth makes you sharp, prepared, unbreakable. Law 22. Never complain, never explain. Seneca despised complainers. He wrote, "It is not the man who has too little who complains, but the man who craves more." Complaining is weakness. It broadcasts that you're overwhelmed, that circumstances control you. The Iron Man never complains, not because life is easy, but because complaining achieves nothing. It doesn't change reality. It doesn't solve problems. It just drains energy. Machiavelli added the second part. He said, "Never explain yourself unless absolutely necessary. Explanations invite judgment, scrutiny, doubt." The Iron Man acts, then lets the results justify themselves. If questioned, he responds minimally, factually. But he doesn't over-explain, doesn't justify, doesn't seek approval, because his actions are their own justification. So here's the law in practice. When life gets hard, stay silent, endure, solve. When people question you, respond briefly, then move on. No complaints, no explanations, just results. Law 23. Build in silence, reveal in completion. Machiavelli observed, "Those who talk about what they'll build rarely build anything, because talking dissipates energy, creates premature accountability, invites interference." The Iron Man builds in darkness, quietly, privately, without announcement. He works while others sleep, plans while others talk, executes while others procrastinate. Then one day he emerges with the finished product, the completed goal, the realized vision. And people are shocked. Where did this come from? How did he do it? They don't know, because he never told them. Seneca agreed. He said, "The wise man works in silence. Let his deeds speak." This isn't about secrecy, it's about focus. When you announce plans, people offer opinions, doubts, unsolicited advice. And even if well-intentioned, it plants seeds of doubt. The Iron Man avoids this. He protects his vision, guards his process, trusts his judgment, then reveals only when complete. And by then, it's too late for interference. The work stands, the results speak. Law 24. Simplicity is sophistication. Seneca was a master of this. Despite his wealth, his status, his influence, he lived simply. He wrote, "It is not the man who has too much who is rich, but the man who has enough." Complexity creates vulnerability, dependencies, maintenance, distraction. Simplicity creates freedom, mobility, focus, strength. The Iron Man eliminates excess. In possessions, in commitments, in relationships, in thoughts. He keeps what serves, discards what doesn't. Machiavelli applied this to strategy. He said, "The simplest plan, executed with determination, beats the complex plan every time." Because complexity creates friction, delays, confusion. Simplicity creates momentum. So the Iron Man asks constantly, what can I remove? What can I simplify? What's unnecessary? And he cuts ruthlessly, until only the essential remains. And in that essentialism, he finds power. Law 25. You are already dying, so live accordingly. This is the final law, the one that makes all others possible. Seneca wrote, "Each day I die a little, and I am grateful, because remembering mortality erases fear." What is there to fear when you're already dying? Embarrassment? Temporary. Failure? Recoverable. Loss? Inevitable. Death? Certain. So what's left to fear? Nothing. Machiavelli, in his final years, faced this: exile, poverty, disgrace. And yet he wrote, "I prefer to go to hell in my own way than to heaven in someone else's." He chose authenticity over approval, truth over comfort, his path over theirs, because he knew he was dying anyway. So why not live as he chose? The Iron Man remembers this daily. He is mortal. Time is running out. This is not a rehearsal. And that memory makes him bold, honest, relentless, unstoppable. Because when you remember you're already dying, everything changes. Small fears disappear. Petty concerns fade. What others think becomes irrelevant. Only one question remains: am I living as I truly want? And if the answer is no, the Iron Man changes it, immediately, without hesitation. Because there's no time to waste. Seneca's last words as he bled out were to his students: "Do not weep. Continue your studies. Remember what you've learned." Even in death he was teaching. Even in death he was composed, because he had lived according to these laws. And so, when death came, it found him ready, unafraid, unbroken. Now you know what they knew: Machiavelli, Seneca, the philosophers who refused to be broken, the strategists who saw reality clearly, the men who forged themselves into iron. 25 laws, not suggestions, not ideals, laws. The question now is, will you follow them? Or will you make excuses, fall back into comfort, choose the easy path? Most people will, most people do. But you've listened this far, which means you might be different. Might be. If you are, if you're serious about building yourself into something unbreakable, subscribe to the Hidden Codex, because we don't stop here. We go deeper, into the teachings they buried, the wisdom they hid, the truths that change everything. Next time, we'll explore the shadow work that Jung never published, the practices he kept secret, the methods that nearly drove him mad. You don't want to miss that. Until then, remember these laws, practice them, live them. Because knowing changes nothing. Doing changes everything. Stay unbreakable.